With the release of the iPhone X, it's easy to forget that Apple also just recently released two other smartphone flagships as well. But after being out for less than 2 months, are they already irrelevant? When you look at the iPhone 8's design, it's easy to become jaded. It's basically an iterational upgrade of the 3 previous flagships Apple have released since 2014. The only real change is found in the new glass panel on the rear of the device. This does allow for the introduction of wireless charging, which is a nice added touch, but the lack of fast wireless charging like we see on Samsung's flagship devices make this more of a novelty rather than a groundbreaking inclusion for me. The added glass also makes the phone twice as fragile as the previous flagships from Apple, so the stakes of dropping your phone are now at an all-time high. The color options are fairly standard. We now have silver, gold, and space gray, which is effectively the jet black found on the iPhone 7, but overall the design of the phone still feels like it's stuck in 2015. In saying this, where the design of the phone is lacking, both the display and the external audio help to make up some of the difference. Despite their devices always having a lower resolution than that of most major flagships on the market at the same time, Apple has always still managed to make their screens some of the best out there, and the iPhone 8 is no different. The screen on this is excellent. It's an LCD panel, which might seem out of place given most manufacturers, including Apple themselves, now tend to prefer OLED displays, but what you miss out on in terms of OLED advantages, you are rewarded instead with incredible saturation and accurate color, a super bright display which makes it great for viewing outdoors, and of course, no color shifting when viewing the device off axis. We also see the introduction of the True Tone display technology, which is also a feature included on the iPhone X, and this basically adjusts the screen's temperature settings to naturally coincide with your surroundings. It's a handy feature, if not a touch too aggressive at times, but once you go back to using any other smartphone without this technology, only then will you realize how useful this feature actually is. The stereo speakers are still included here with the iPhone 8, but now they're 25% louder than what we had on the iPhone 7. If you're an iPhone 7 user, then you've probably been thinking that this device is very similar to the one you already own, and you'd be right. The main difference between the two devices is the new A11 Bionic chip found inside the 8 and 8 Plus. This is the same chipset found inside the iPhone X, and this thing is blazing fast. If the A10 chip in the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus was good, then this new chip is phenomenal. Combined with the optimization of iOS, you're using probably the smoothest smartphone device on the market right now. Whilst I love the flexibility of Android and prefer the overall navigation, nothing can trump iOS in terms of speed and reliability. There are a few bugs that are apparent with iOS and make it frustrating to use, such as the messy notification system, but for me, it's the lack of customization that ultimately makes the experience dull and somewhat boring. But you cannot argue with its usability. Besides the speed of the software experience, the fingerprint sensor is absolutely no joke. Touch ID on the iPhone has always been crazy fast, and yet somehow Touch ID on the iPhone 8 is even faster and even more accurate. The camera is also just about as good as any single shooting sensor on the market these days, save for perhaps the Pixel 2, but if you're someone who takes a lot of photos, then the iPhone 8 will certainly not disappoint. It just has a knack for taking very pleasing images that are punchy and sharp, but not over the top like some of the photos taken from Galaxy devices. Ultimately, the iPhone 8 really should have been called the iPhone 7S, and even then, if you already own the iPhone 6, 6S, or 7, then the upgrade really isn't worth it. On its own, this is a great device, perhaps even close to flawless, but with Apple releasing the iPhone X at just about the same time, and given the lack of feature upgrades over previous iterations of this device, overall it makes it hard to recommend this phone. Whilst the iPhone X will cost users $300 more than the baseline iPhone 8, I really do think there is enough of a reason to skip this phone, save up some extra cash, and go with the 10.